Today I've got heated topics and heated panelists ready to duke it out in order to prove their point. The Miami Heat are struggling to live up to their hype. No one is happy and the entire country is expecting results. The 49ers were able to defeat the Cardinals with only a fraction of their playbook, but can they expect the same results without Frank Gore? Derek Jeter wants to stay a Yankee, but believe that he deserves more than $15 million a season. Will the Yankees keep their poster boy, or will they simply move on? Are you ready? Because it's time to go around the horn. Our panelists today on Around the Horn are Mike Gelsonon, Jim Napperstack, and Danny Reedy.
It's the first word.
With the Heat handily defeating the Cavaliers last Thursday, do you expect to see the Heat to get back on track, or will they still have more to work out? Mike?
You know, Dan, I do believe that the Heat are improving from their first season woes. I still think there is room for improvement. There's some miscommunications between the big three, Wade, James, and Bosh. I think that they are improving, like I said, but their hype of being better than the Bulls' 72-10 record is not up to par, and they have a long way to go in order to do that.
All right, Jim?
You know, I caught a little bit of last Thursday night's game. I was impressed with what I saw, but at the time I wasn't sure if that was just because of all the hype that, the media put into LeBron coming back to Cleveland. Now, the Heat have won 5 in a row. I really think the players are starting to learn their roles. They realize that they're not each a superstar in this team, but, I think Spoelstra has finally gotten a hold of his team, and I'm excited to see where they can take it in the next 10 to 15 games.
Danny?
Yeah, kind of off of what you said, Jim. I think mostly with the Heat, I think they kind of learned they didn't have to play so much as a team. So much of it, you saw Dwayne Wade and LeBron James in their respective stadiums were the guy. They were the ones to take the shots and take over games. At the beginning, I think there was almost too much unselfishness. They tried to, spread the ball around, not be that guy. They've learned that, when Dwayne Wade's on fire, get him the ball. Let him take over for at least a couple minutes a game. Let LeBron do the same thing. And I think that's what you've seen recently, is they've really gotten back to that sort of I can be a big superstar mentality, not so much focus on the team, which I think worked against them at the beginning of the season.
At the end of the first question, I'm sorry, Mike, but you're in last place with only 3 points. Jim, you're in first with 6, and Danny, you are in second with 5 points. ESPN recently reported that San Francisco quarterback Troy Smith only knows a fraction of the playbook. If you were Mike Singletary, who'd you go with? Alex Smith, who knows the entire playbook, or Troy Smith, who has more talent but less knowledge?
If I'm Mike Singletary, I'm obviously going to go with Troy Smith. I think he's shown that even though with his limited knowledge, he really has the backing of his entire team. And I think with a team in a conference or in a division that's really trying to win, you got to go with the confidence of the entire team over necessarily the knowledge. Obviously, with Frank Gore going out, Brian Westbrook is going to have to pick up the slack, and I think that's why I put him on my fantasy team. So I'm interested to see what Westbrook can do, but in the end, I'm going to go with Troy Smith over Alex Smith, 8 days of the week.
Yeah, all right, Danny.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jim, 100%, because what you get with Troy Smith is you got to go with talent over knowledge. Obviously, they'd be picking Alex Smith if, he could execute, but if you have a quarterback that simply can't execute the plays, it doesn't matter how many he knows. Whereas with Troy Smith, plays are designed to work, so even if you can run a fraction of the playbook, but he can run them well, I think the coaches can mix up enough different things. Michael Singletary is a great coach. He can mix up enough different packages, different things, so even though the sheer number of plays may not be there, he'll get a good enough mix where I think Troy Smith can really be versatile. Plus, he's got his feet underneath him, so you can make a play anytime with that kind of athleticism.
Your turn, Mike.
You know what? I'm actually going to turn on both of you. I think that Alex Smith should play. Should play. You know why? I'm surprised in Samurai Mike. Remember a few years ago when he sent Vernon Wells to the locker rooms early? For motivation. If you're not going to play well, if you're not going to be dedicated to the 49ers, then get out. I think you should bench him, bench Troy Smith, put in Alex Smith, say, you know what? Get motivated. You get to know that playbook. we'll see what happens. Light a fire on them and we'll see what's happening.
Interesting.
After the second question, Mike gained some ground and got up to 9 points. Jim, I'm sorry to say, but Danny has taken the lead from you. He now has 12 and you have 11. Free agent shortstop and future Hall of Famer Derek Jeter has still not signed with his former team, the New York Yankees. Jeter is looking for a 4 or 5 year deal with $23 million per year. The Yankees have already offered him a 3-year deal worth $45 million. Jeter will go down as one of the greatest players of all time. Is Jeter asking too much compared to what he's done the last few seasons? What do you think, Danny?
Well, with Derek Jeter, you kind of get a unique player because not only are you getting a good, solid shortstop, he's been there for years, obviously has Hall of Fame numbers, but you're also getting a player that's not going to be, cause any locker room distractions. He's great with the press. He's a city icon, and just in that, you're going to sell additional tickets to come see Derek Jeter. So I think the Yankees are not only paying necessarily for the player, they're also paying for the image and all the merchandise that can come along with that. So in my opinion, I don't think Derek Jeter, with all that he brings to the table in terms of the fan base and everything like that, I don't think he's asking too much. To that city, he is a biracial angel.
All right, Mike.
I'm going to have to agree with you on that one, Danny. I think Derek Jeter is the Yankees currently. When he retires, he's going to be in a long list to Lou Gehrig, Babe Ruth, Dave Winfield, Roger Maris. He is the Yankees now. Give it to him. Maybe be hefty, but with the price, he's a great man, great player. And at this age, 270 batting average isn't that bad.
Guys, I think something that we're all really overlooking is that this is a problem throughout the entire league. And who better to use to make an example to other players than Derek Jeter? I think the Yankees need to stay firm. Don't give in to what he's wanting, because that's what every other team in the league is doing. If the Yankees can show that they can stay firm, I think Jeter will eventually collapse and come down to whatever the Yankees want, because Jeter wants to stay in New York. But if the Yankees give in, then they're just flopping like the other 29 teams in the league right now. So if I'm the Yankees, I'm Brian Cashman, I am not giving in to Derek Jeter right now. Derek Jeter needs to realize that he's a player, he's a part of the team, he needs to come down for the better of the organization.
At the end of round 1, Mike has 12 points, Jim, you have 16, and Danny, you're all tied up with him, also with 16. Coming up next, we take a look at football teams from outside the Big Six in the BCS and whether they are considered a redheaded stepchild. With FIFA's announcement of the World Cup host, the U.S. got snubbed for a country the size of Connecticut, but has a population of just over 850,000. And we're taking a break. Coming up next, buy or sell. Don't touch that dial. We'll be back in 60 seconds.
I'm on myduhawk.com.
I'm on my Duhawk.
I'm on myduhawk.
I'm on my Duhawk.
I'm on my Duhawk.
I'm on myduhawk.
I'm on my Duhawk.
I'm on my Duhawk.
I'm on myduhawk.com. Are you?
myduhawk.com. Delivering you Dubuque.
I find inspiration all around me. From those that push me to think and to grow. To move forward, because to stand still is to fall behind. That's not my plan. I'm just getting started. My life is just beginning. My major is inspiration.
Buy or sell.
With the success of TCU and Boise State this season, there has been many discussions about the ability of teams from outside conferences outside of the Big Six. Buy or sell, does TCU deserve to play on the same field as other teams from the Big Ten, Pac-10, or SEC? Mike?
You know what, Dan? I think they do. They got offense and they have defense. The lowest scoring game they had this season was 27 points. But on the other side of that, they shut them out. They shut the other team out. I think that they can take on Wisconsin. It's going to be a tough game, but I think they can take them on. TCU, I got your back.
You know, I really can't stand for this. TCU, who do you play during your season? You know, your last game of the season, you played a 1-10 team. All righty, if you put Wisconsin up against a 1-10 team, they're going to score 150 points. They scored 70 points against Indiana. I can't stand for TCU being in a BCS bowl game if they don't play anyone but the Little Sisters of the Poor. I'm selling this.
I'm going to have to go right along with you, Jim. I'm completely selling this. You know, listen, TCU, you don't go through the grind that teams in the Big Ten, the Pac-10. You have teams every week that can beat you. Look at the Big Ten. There's a lot of scares that happen. Even Iowa, they were a pretty good team, upset Michigan State. They were looking forward to a big win there, you know, kind of a statement win in the conference. But when you don't have teams each week that can show other teams how to beat you, week in, week out, like Auburn and Oregon, you got to say Boise State and TCU, rope them both in. Teams simply can't show other teams how to beat them on a weekly basis. Therefore, you can use the same game plan. You can rest your starters. Don't go through the grind. I do not think that they deserve a national title chance.
After the first buy or sell segment, Mike, you now have 17 points, cutting into that lead a little bit, but Jim is still far away with 21, and Danny, you're right behind him with just 20. Last Thursday, FIFA held its selection to publicize the host of the 2018-2022 World Cup. The United States had put in a bid to receive the 2022 World Cup, but had no such luck as Qatar was chosen. Buy or sell, FIFA selecting Qatar as the host for the 2022 World Cup. Jim?
You know, I really don't understand what FIFA was thinking here. When it comes down to it, Qatar is the size of Connecticut with a population of 850,000. And recent World Cups have brought in populations of 3.5 million. Honestly, I don't understand how the country is going to be able to sustain the World Cup. In addition to this, they're going to have to build 5 brand new stadiums. You bring the World Cup to the United States, it's going to resurge soccer in the country. I do apologize. A good majority of the stadiums and facilities are already built. So you're saving the country money and you're saving the FIFA organization's money. And third, Qatar is a dry country. Okay, alcohol sales at sporting events really bringing the monies right behind advertising. How is Qatar going to make money for FIFA if they can't sell alcohol at their events? I'm selling Qatar getting the World Cup bid.
Again, Jim, just like all show, I got to agree with you here. You know, FIFA is widely regarded. I mean, there is a lot of corruption built into the system. Case in point, basically their president of Qatar announced that they had won the bid an hour before FIFA made the official announcement. So you got to wonder what was going on there. Again, also think about transportation. Qatar, peninsula country, basically into the sea. They have 2 highways leading into the country. You're going to try to surge 3.5 million people, 3 or 4 times the size of the country, into that small country in that tiny of a space with 2 highways. I don't think they have the infrastructure for it. A lot of the stadium plans have arrival by water taxi. How many water taxis are you going to have to build to get 3.5 million people? You're just going to jam up the sea the same way you're going to jam up all those highways. I think it might be a nightmare. I think it's definitely a poor decision. Plus, the last attendance record was set right here in the United States, and that was years ago. So we clearly should have gotten the bid.
You know, boys, I'm going to have to agree with you. First off, Qatar, Qatar, what is it? I've never heard of this country before, all right? They're saying, oh, we're going to build 5 state-of-the-art stadiums. Oh, that's nice. After the World Cup, who's going to use them? No one's going to use them because no one knows what Qatar is. No one's coming to the... People will go to the soccer games, but after that, what are they going to do? I mean, I'm selling this one, and in today's tough economies with the dry land, I don't think it's going to do anything. I'm selling it.
After our second buy or sell segment, Mike, you're still pretty far behind with only 20. Jim, you're in a pretty big lead now with 28. And Danny, you have 25.
Comfortable.
After returning the team to glory after a 49-year hiatus, Blackhawks head coach Joe Quenneville saw his team dismantled before his eyes. Now he's faced with a new goaltending duo, as well as 8 faces that didn't play a critical role in last year's postseason success. The Blackhawks are struggling this year, so buy or sell. Is Coach Quenneville a good coach, or did he simply have the right players last season? Jim?
You know, I follow the Blackhawks. They're very dear to my heart. You know what? One thing I didn't really agree with last year was the fact that every few games something wasn't going right. Quenneville just seemed to pull names out of a hat and throw them down on the table for their lines for that game that night. Quenneville has only been a coach for so many years, so I'm going to have to sell on Quenneville being a good coach. just for the matter of fact that, last year they had the perfect team. They lost a lot of those players this year, and now we're seeing the team struggle. So there's really no other way I could put it other than Quenneville's not the coach that everyone cut him out to be.
Jim, I'm a little torn on the subject. I mean, you got the Blackhawks, arguably the best starting five in the entire NHL. 3 strong forwards up front, probably the best defensive pairing in the league. You got new goaltending, but I think while they still have those, they lost a lot of their key players, the sort of situational players, if you will. Biggest one has to be Bufflin, who came in, could totally change a game. Big hits, big forward, kind of a big man up front, could really change the pace of a game. So I'm gonna let Coach Quenneville have a little bit more time. I'm going to buy that he's a good coach, see if he can continue. I know he lost a lot of key players. I want to see if he can rebuild, especially with that salary cap imposing on him. That definitely was a detriment to the team.
Danny, I'm going to have to, I'm like with you, I'm torn. I'm going to have to buy that he is a good coach. Yes, he did have the right players last year, but if you've looked in the past, he has led teams to playoff runs. Sure, this was his first Stanley Cup out of numerous playoff appearances. He had big guys up front. He had good D. It was a very physical team. I just believe that this is a team that's still getting to know each other. You have a lot of young guys, a lot of guys who are new to the Blackhawks franchise. So let's play it out for a few more games, maybe next season. But I'm fine. Quenneville is the coach for the Blackhawks.
Good points all around, but Mike, I'm sorry to say, it looks like you just couldn't cut it today. Thanks for playing. You finished with 26 points. Next up, Jim and Danny will go head-to-head in the showdown. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hello? All right, I'm on my way. Live sports team, assemble!
Welcome back. Following our first 2 rounds, it's time for the showdown. Here's how it will work. We'll preview a topic and each analyst will have 30 seconds to respond and convince me on their position. It's best of 3 contests, so let's get started. Following the Week 12 fight between Andre Johnson and Cortland Finnegan, the NFL handed down its punishment, a mere $25,000 for their on-field actions. Was this an accurate punishment, or should they have received more? Start with Jim.
I think something that the NFL has really tried to do behind the backing of Roger Goodell is they've tried to take their punishments and make it black and white. This way, a player commits this action, this is the fine he gets. This takes out the bias or the potential for bias in handing out punishments. So right now it seems like it's very mere. Nobody really was affected. Because everyone makes so much money. But I think that's the way the NFL has gone with their punishment system, just to eliminate, the potential for bias in their decisions.
Jim, I'm going to disagree with you there. You got Cortland Finnegan for the Tennessee Titans. He has gone out publicly and said, I want to be known as the dirtiest player in the NFL. You also have Andre Johnson, other side of the coin. Great guy, great with the press, never had any on-field incidents. If you're going to take and completely eliminate a player's past and give them equal punishment, Andre Johnson, you got to trust the guy. He's never had any sort of altercation whatsoever. When you got Finnegan antagonizing him time and time again, you got to think that something pushed Johnson over the edge. I think Cortland should have been suspended. Andre Johnson, I think the fine was appropriate, but I did not agree that they both got the same thing.
The point will be awarded to Danny for that first round. Now, the NCAA just declared Auburn junior quarterback Cam Newton eligible for his team's SEC championship game this past weekend. This comes following a recent investigation by the NCAA to determine if Newton broke the rules during his recruiting period. What's your take on the whole investigation, and do you feel Cam Newton should be playing right now? We'll go with Danny.
You know what? I think it's kind of an interesting topic because you've got something where basically his father accepted money, but Cam Newton didn't know about it. Now, is that justified? And because Cam Newton didn't know, should he be held out? And in some regard, I think he is. You're setting a dangerous precedent here. You're saying if the player, if their family accepts money, but the player doesn't know about it, that the player is exempt from that sort of thing, I think that's incorrect. So I do believe that he should have been held out for the game.
I'm not going to disagree with you, but I'm going to take it one step further. Where was this investigation earlier in the season? I think the reason why it came up is when Cam Newton started really excelling at the game of football and getting his name thrown into the Heisman mix. So I think it was a bad part on the NCAA to just jump into this investigation in the middle of the season. This is something that you can't honestly say they didn't know about before the season or even in the first couple of weeks. So for the NCAA to jump into this and distract Cam Newton in weeks 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, etc., I think that's a bad choice on their part. And to agree with Danny, I do believe that it is setting that dangerous precedent. But my main concern is the way the NCAA handled it.
Very, very close match here today, but I'm going to have to go with Danny as the winner. Based on the arguments, I think he was just the best guy out there today.
You know what? I'm going to take this FaceTime and give a little shout out to young Mooch Donnelly. He was just announced today. He is an all-academic IAC football player, only one on Loras College, so I want to give mad props. He's my roommate. He studies hard. He deserves it. So I just want to take a little time. Shout out to Mooch Donnelly.
All right, folks. That'll do it for this episode of Around the Horn. Along with our panelists, I'm Dan Murray. Have a good night.